Jennette McCurdy, she's famous from iCarly, and she was also on Sam and Cat and some other Nickelodeon shows. Possibly had like a music career of some sort, as these sort of Disney Nickelodeon types often do. I don't know why they had like a shoehorned music career built into every actor and actress from that era, but dude, this is a video by It's Blanco about the tragic life of Jennette McCurdy, dude. I know she had a book come out that was like, I'm glad my mom died. I think that was literally the title. Pretty dramatic and harsh, but freaking maybe deserved. But maybe her life really was tragic, dude. Let's freaking check it out, dude.
That grew up watching her as Sam Puckett in iCarly. But after the end of the show, and after the failure of its spin-off Sam and Cat, Jennette went down a path of alcoholism, eating disorders, and messy public appearances that deemed her a child star gone crazy. How could this happen? Well, the harsh truth is that Jennette never wanted the fame. She never wanted to be an actress, she never wanted to be a TV, she never wanted to be on camera. She later opened up about this in her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, a book title that may shock or even offend a lot of people. The idea that someone would be so happy over the death of their own mom would make you be a little skeptical. But
I mean, I assume there's some level of clickbait there, right? Freaking, you can't be that thrilled, literally happy, but maybe it was like, oh, I am at peace, I am catharsis, I am catharst.
After reading the book
I don't
and
know
looking at her
words.
story, you'd be glad she died.
Clearly, I haven't read the book because I don't know how.
So let's look at the story of Jennette McCurdy. A lot of people would be surprised that Jennette actually came from terrible circumstances. She lived in a house with her 3 brothers, her mom Deborah, her dad Mark, and her grandparents on her mom's side. They were often very short on paying the bills and constantly needed extensions. The only reason they still even had the house in the first place was because Mark's parents were the previous owners and they gave him a good deal. All of the adults had jobs except for Deborah. Her grandpa worked as a ticket taker in Disneyland, her grandma was a receptionist at a retirement home, and her dad made cardboard cutouts for Hollywood Video and also worked in the kitchen department at Home Depot.
Dude, imagine your job is to make the cardboard cutouts for Hollywood Video specifically. Dude, I have a freaking cardboard cutout right now. You can't see it. There he is, dude. This is actually Danny DeVito. I know it looks like Ghostface, and it is, but you know. That's a cool job.
However, her mom was the only one that was not employed at all. She occasionally would pick up some shifts at Targets during the holidays, but never really had a job. Jennette was extremely close to her mom. Being homeschooled her whole life and didn't really have any girls her age to talk to, she naturally bonded with her mom a lot more. At only 2 years old, Deborah was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, which was a heavy burden on the family.
Oh no.
Not just because of her treatment, which racked up the medical bills, or the emotional stress it put on the family, but because of the extreme lifestyle changes that she implemented on the family after her diagnosis. She was cancer-free a couple years later, but still changed for the worse. Deborah became an excessive hoarder, and I mean an excessive hoarder. The house was flooded with random junk like toys, expired makeup, used wrappers, a bunch of junk. The stuff overflowed the garage to the point where it was not usable. Jennette and her brothers couldn't even access their own bedroom because it was so heavily cluttered. So they ended up having to sleep in the living room on gymnastics mats that they bought from Costco. Not to mention, the hoarding attracted a giant rat and possum issue. Jennette was ashamed of her house her entire life. The family was raised Mormon and they were members of the Church of Jesus of Latter-day Saints. Kids usually hate attending religious obligations, but Jennette would always look forward to the 3-hour Sunday service because, quite frankly, it was the only thing that got them out of the flooded house. And it was after Deborah's diagnosis that they started attending more and more frequently. At home, Jennette's mom was ecstatic. It's suspected that she had bipolar disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, or a weird combination of all 3. She never got treatment for her issues or went to therapy despite her family constantly encouraging her to go get help. She often got angry with Jennette's dad for no reason. If Mark came home a little bit later than usual, Deborah would automatically assume that he was cheating and threaten him with a knife to leave the house. This happened pretty often, and he put up with it. Deborah always wanted to be an actress, but never pursued it and always put the blame on her parents for never supporting her. She believed that she deserved the fame and fortune, the celebrity lifestyle. Living in a crappy home and in an unfulfilled marriage, she constantly dreamed of what could have been. So, when Jennette turned 6, she decided to turn her into an actress and give her the life that she never had. But Jennette had no interest in acting. She never hinted at it or even thought about doing it. She was shy.
Dude, I could just not relate to that idea. I know it happens all the time where parents will like let their kids / sometimes make their kids like fulfill the dreams that they never got to do. That's just so strange to me. Which I mean, maybe I'm in the majority there, and that's not that crazy of a take, but still, I'm just thinking out loud.
And uncomfortable in person. But Jennette would do anything to make her mom happy. Anything. Her mom was her best friend in the whole world and meant everything to her. Jennette's birthday wish each year was for her mom to live long enough to see the next one. Jennette was always careful never to say the wrong thing around her mom because she was always scared about how she would react. When Deborah didn't get her way, she would throw tantrums and become rowdy like a child, ironically. So when Jennette's mom asked her if she wanted to be mommy's little actress, there was only one right answer. Child actors are a gold mine in the industry. If a child can perform well on camera, they can make very good money for their work. Deborah didn't just see her as a vessel for her dream, but also as a big paycheck. It was then that Deborah dedicated to being Jennette's full-time manager. Now, they lived in Garden Grove, California, which was only an hour-and-a-half drive from Hollywood. Deborah started taking her to agencies to get her an agent, and from the get-go, the agents could clearly tell that Jennette's heart was not in acting. But Deborah wanted this more than anything, so Jennette wanted this more than anything. She eventually got signed to do background work. Her first gig was on The X-Files, a very popular TV show. Her first role was uncredited, and the exact episode she's in was unknown, but it's a good start. Jennette then started to get more and more background roles regularly. Eventually, Jennette
I was thinking of The Twilight Zone, but that's like the same thing in my brain.
Chosen to play a small key shot in the film Golden Dreams, a film about the Great Depression. The director liked how she was really good at making a sad face. Ironically, it wasn't really that hard for her to be authentic.
I'm greatly depressed.
I regret everything I've done.
You're in.
Only for a small second, but this was just enough to elevate her from background actor to principal actor. Now, principal actors are the ones who have speaking roles, and this would now open the door for Jennette to get bigger and better roles. Deborah started getting more and more intense for Jennette's preparation to get good roles. When Jennette didn't do well in an audition that had dance choreography, she started making Jennette take 14 dance classes a week. When she lost out on a Chef
14 a week? That's 2 a day. That's insane.
For not being able to pogo stick, she made Jennette practice pogoing every single day until she could land 1,000 jumps without falling. In 2008, she landed her first real role on Mad TV, where she played in one of the skits. In the skit, Nancy Sullivan portrayed Kathy Lee Gifford, who was a very famous television host at the time. And in the skit, she puts her children on a talk show to try and make them famous as well.
It's
where
Regis
Jennette plays her daughter. What makes this skit so ironic is the fact that Kathy is constantly coaching her kids on what to say and how to act. Kind of like how Jennette's real mom does in real life.
Say something. You're old. Good one, Cass. All right, we got a great show for you today. Cass, Cody, smile. Smile. And Cassidy, put down that sugar daddy!
For this role, Deborah had Jennette constantly chugging sugar-free Red Bulls to keep her energized, which is a very dangerous thing to give a kid. Jennette was a very likable child actor in the industry because
I don't think I started drinking Monsters until I was like at least 13 years old.
Took direction well and was very cooperative. Something
probably
that
stunted my everything.
Find amongst child actors. But one of her secret weapons was being able to cry on cue. That's a hard one. Jennette was a natural at this. Whenever she needed to cry for a scene, she would just simply think of one of her brothers dying and the tears would flow like waterfalls. Being liked in the industry and being recognized for talent would really elevate Jennette's career. She made guest appearances on CSI, Malcolm in the Middle, Law and Order, and she even did a Sprint commercial which gave her residuals. With the money, she got herself a nice oak bed, and her mom even decluttered her room just enough for her to be able to sleep in an actual bed. She even got a Young Artist Award nomination for her guest spot in the medical drama Strong Medicine. But it was during this time that Jennette started to develop OCD. On Jennette's 8th birthday, she was officially baptized as a Mormon. Her mom did the same when she was 8, and her mother before that as well. On the day of her baptism, a small voice appeared in her head that she interpreted as the Holy Ghost. In Mormonism, the Holy Ghost is seen as the third Godhead alongside God the Father and Jesus Christ. The Holy Ghost acts as a spiritual guide and a source of comfort. This Holy Ghost instructed Jennette to do
let me know.
And to keep her mom alive. This started all the way back when Jennette would use her birthday wish every single year that her mom would not die of cancer. And since she did this every year and her mom was alive every year, she made the conclusion that she had to keep doing this in order for her mom to stay alive. Jennette never told anyone in the family about this voice, but her grandpa noticed that she was doing these very strange repetitive tasks and urged her mom to take her to a therapist. Deborah brushed it off and urged that Jennette was perfect. Jennette's grandpa was the only one one who voiced his opinion on Jennette not being an actor. Because at this point, Jennette's acting was basically an effort for Deborah to live her dream and also to keep a roof over the family's head. The idea that Jennette had to keep acting in order to keep her mom happy and to help keep the bills paid was a lot of stress for an 8-year-old, but there was no convincing Deborah. Now,
especially an 8-year-old who's already addicted to Red Bull, dude. Way too early.
Had a taste of her daughter being in the spotlight and on television, there was no going back. Jennette was in way too deep at this point in her pre-chosen career path in order to make her mom happy, even if that meant making her miserable. In reality, Jennette always wanted to be a writer, but it was never encouraged by her mom. When Jennette wrote her first screenplay and showed it to her mom barely even read it before saying, "I hope you don't like writing more than acting. You're so good at acting," and deemed her idea a copy of The Parent Trap. Jennette was embarrassed that she even showed her the screenplay. Deborah was obsessed with keeping Jennette looking young so that she had more opportunity for auditions. And
clearly her book title was a result of her holding a grudge against her mother. It all makes sense now.
Was afraid of puberty because she felt her mom wouldn't love her anymore if she grew up. Deborah got her into what she called calorie restriction, which was basically a fancy way of saying starving yourself. Jennette and her mom would start doing this calorie restriction practice together, planning their meals for the next day together while keeping a very high track of everything they ate. Deborah provided Jennette with a stack of dieting books to help her lose weight. Soon, Jennette would only eat half of her meals throughout the day to only get half the calories and would stick to water-dense vegetables and fruits. Her dinners then consisted mostly of iceberg lettuce and ripped up pieces of bologna.
Good
Her
Lord.
cheat foods would be sugar-free popsicles, applesauce, and unsweetened iced tea. Jennette quite literally became anorexic, but oddly enjoyed it because her mom approved of it. In Jennette's mind, she
That's
thought
so
it was
fucked up, dude. Freaking, you need to let your kid eat food and be normal. You fucking piece of shit. All right, skipping ahead a little bit.
And I didn't want that to happen. So I asked if there was a way that I could stop the boobies from coming in, and she told me, well, there's a thing called calorie restriction. Wow. And it became our sort of secret and our code, and something that, as disturbing as it is, really bonded us.
Right.
It was our thing.
Yep.
No one else got this thing. We got this thing. I can look at you from across the room and know you got me and I got you. And we were just in the disease, in the sickness. But there was a connection that the sickness created that I, of course, couldn't see at the time.
Jennette would weigh herself 5 times a day to make sure that she was making progress, and then became obsessed with her weight. Over the course of 6 months, Jennette went down 3 sizes and weighed 61 pounds. A very unhealthy weight for a girl her age. And even then, her mom was disappointed that it wasn't lower. When Jennette was weighed by her doctor, they tried to tell her mom that she may be anorexic.
Blue?
Deborah would act surprised and
learning
claim
about
that she thought that
Jennette
was
McCurdy from Sam and Cat fame.
She was the one that put Jennette on this path in the first place. Jennette's loss in weight was very noticeable to people around her, but this would only be the start of her eating disorders that carried into her adulthood. In 2005, Jennette made her first Nickelodeon appearance in the show Zoe 101 in the 2nd season. She played a rebellious and rude girl that gets held back in the 6th grade multiple times.
Bro, I liked Zoe 101, but I feel like a lot of the actors in it I do not remember. Sorry for pausing it right here, Sam, or Miss Jennette, whatever.
She played the role well. Really, really well. Dan Schneider liked her I don't give a fuck attitude.
Nobody looked like themselves in that show.
It made her a perfect contender for the upcoming kids show that Nickelodeon had planned, iCarly, a show about 2 teens who start a website.
I've heard of it.
Jennette nailed the audition.
What a stupid idea.
This was big.
People would never have a web show.
Jennette booked a lead role on a major television network. Upon hearing the news, both Jennette and her mom screamed at the top of their lungs in excitement. Jennette thought this would be the start of easy times. Her mom would finally be happy with life and with her daughter, but it was a start of absolute hell. On the show, Jennette famously plays the character of Sam Puckett, the rude and tomboyish best friend of the main character. And there's quite a lot of irony with this role. For one, she was usually the comedic relief of the show and almost stole every single scene that she was in. She was the fan favorite even though she hated playing the role. In the show, Sam loves food, often eating random food that she seems to get out of nowhere, like fat cakes, bacon, and meat. And Sam was still starving herself horrendously on the show. It was like her own role was teasing her. And on top of it all, Sam has a terrible relationship with her mom in the show. It's hinted that Sam's character has a pretty rough upbringing, just like in real life. And in the one show where Sam's mom made an appearance, they get into a giant fight. And despite Jennette's deep hatred for the show, something positive did come from the experience: her friendship with co-star Miranda Cosgrove. The two became very, very good friends on and off the set, which many Nickelodeon fans would probably love to hear, considering the fact that Drake and Josh watched didn't really get along very well on set. Now, initially, Deborah told Jennette to stay away from Miranda because she didn't believe in God, but it might have also been the jealousy of Miranda taking up more of the spotlight from her daughter. Jennette admired Miranda and saw her as the cool girl. They exchanged numbers after the last shoot of the first season and began texting every single day. After work, they would watch a movie at ArcLight together and they would Skype every weekend. However, Deborah would always accompany them on their hangouts and her controlling behavior continued.
The guy who played the older brother on iCarly actually stayed overtime to make sure Dan wasn't alone with the kids.
Salami.
Jerry Trainer, I think that's his name. Thank you for the follow, dog, whoever that was.
Most violating things that Deborah did was frequently shower Jennette. Yeah, you heard me right. And she would do frequent checkups on her special areas for cancer. Often she would shower Jennette and her brother together, which was very, very uncomfortable for the both of them. She did this ever since Jennette was little and did it all throughout her teen years. Jennette claims that this was the hardest part to write about in her book and contributed pretty badly to a lot of her body issues. And whenever Jennette said that she didn't want to do them anymore, her mom would wail and cry about her child growing up, and then Jennette would cave in. Her mom still made her sit in a booster seat whenever she was in the car. Again, she's 16 at this time.
Oh my God.
She monitored almost everything Jennette ate from breakfast till dinner. If Jennette wanted to eat something, it had to get the thumbs up from Mama McCurdy. And even then, she could still barely eat anything. She was still eating lettuce and bologna for dinner, but 3 years after iCarly started, her mom started to let her eat a little bit more. She started giving Jennette 2% milk and honeycomb cereal, a huge upgrade from having no breakfast at all. And after dinner, Jennette would be allowed to eat 2 Smart Cookies for dinner. But her mom was still very overly obsessed with her weight. 2008 was a very eventful year for Jennette. This was the year the Writers Guild Strike of America occurred. Over 12,000 TV and film writers refused to work in protest for fair wages, and iCarly was one of the many shows affected. This put a pause on show production, so Jennette's team suggested that she get into music to try and keep her career going. This is what a lot of the teen actors were doing at the time, including Britney.
She sure showed me about the shoehorn music career. Apparently there was a whole ass reason. Ethic-based. I guess they were on strike. Hell yeah, gotta make music. Easy loophole.
Spears, Hilary Duff, and of course, Miley Cyrus. She decided to go towards the pop country genre considering that it was trending really hard at the time. Her mom had her post covers of songs on YouTube to try and get attention from labels, and as soon as she got an offer from Capitol Records. On March 10th, 2009, she dropped her debut single, So Close to Me, and announced that she was working on a new album. She lived in Nashville for 3 months to record material. In 2010, she dropped her debut EP, Not That Far Away, and it peaked at number 32 on the Billboard Country
debut
charts. Not bad for a debut release. Jennette was actually a really good singer and was really able to show off her voice on these songs. But material-wise, it's exactly what it sounds like. A popular actress who happens to have a good voice, who's signed to a big label, has a big budget, and a really talented team. Most of the writing was already done for her. The writing, the composition, the production. Just like acting, all Jennette really had to do was show up and say her lines. Her lines in this case being the lyrics. And just like acting...
Alright, I'm sure the music career was awesome on her Taylor Swift shit. Back to iCarly.
Instead of just half the portion, Jennette could barely resist. She started to gain weight pretty fast and started putting on some
500 pounds? Stock footage did her dirty. That's insane, dude.
Which in her case was kind of a good thing.
What the fuck?
Considering that she was severely underweight. But Jennette panicked as she saw the numbers going up, freaking out about how her mom would react. Coming home from tour, Jennette and her mom were both mutually shocked in the change in each other's appearance. While Jennette gained weight rapidly, her mom lost weight rapidly from all the chemotherapy, losing around 10 to 12 pounds. Deborah was completely shocked and disappointed with the severe gain in Jennette's weight and urged that she was out of control. Meanwhile, the cancer was getting a lot worse for Deborah, making her wheelchair bound. And when a cancer patient is wheelchair bound, they're basically living on borrowed time. Emotionally, this was a big burden on Jennette, and also career-wise too. Deborah was the one who usually drove Jennette to set because Jennette never had a license, since her mom urged that Jennette's energy would be better put towards memorizing lines rather than getting a license.
No, they weren't actually 500 pounds. It was just the stock footage they were using. It was crazy.
Jennette got her own apartment closer to the studio. And Jennette was 20 years old at this time, so it was perfectly normal for someone her age to go live on their own, considering that she was financially able to afford it. It was an hour away from her childhood home in Garden Grove, and her assistant was able to drive her to and off set. Jennette was excited to finally be on her own, but also felt guilty because she would be away from her needy and decaying mother. But regardless, the decision was made, and Jennette was living on her own. Finally able to eat what she pleased parties, shower by herself, and be a real adult. That was until after all her family moved her stuff in. Deborah gifted her a copy of The Sting and suggested that they watch it together and asked to stay the night afterwards. Jennette knew that this would basically be the start of her mom moving in with her, but all her life, the one thing that Jennette was never able to do was say no to her mom. So, no chance it was going to start.
Why start
Deborah
now?
stayed over one night, then it turned
Damn it, dude.
into
This
3,
guy's
and then she basically started
tapped into my head.
Now, Deborah was Jennette's roommate. Jennette was not able to escape her mom, and her decline was speeding up. Seeing that Jennette was going to lose her mom, she needed to fill that spot with a new person. In 2011, Jennette started dating a writer from iCarly, Paul Glazer. They met when Paul started working on the show during its final season. Jennette kept this relationship secret from her mom and from the world, probably afraid of the judgment that they would get considering that Jennette was 18 and Paul was 32, nearly double her age.
Good Lord.
One night, Jennette lied to her mom saying
What's
that she was
going on, Paul?
to sleep over at
Big
Miranda's
guy.
house, when in reality, her and Paul were going on a trip to Hawaii together. Jennette and Paul were having a good time on the trip until they were caught by paparazzi. The photos spread like...
What up, sunny young guy? Appreciate you, dog, for watching. Hope you're doing well. Getting married soon. Congrats, dog.
Wildfire
Glad to
over the
hear.
internet because this was the very first time that people were learning about their relationship. Upon hearing the news, Deborah went berserk and wrote Jennette one of the foulest letters that a woman could write to her daughter.
Dear Nett, I am so disappointed in you.
Oh my God.
You used to be my perfect little angel, but now you are nothing more than a little, all caps, slut, floozy, all used up. And to think, you wasted it on that hideous ogre of a man.
Ogre?
I saw the pictures on a website called TMZ. I saw you
I've
rubbing his
heard of it.
disgusting hairy stomach. I knew you were lying about Colton. I had told her I was with a friend, Colton. Add that to the list of things you are. Liar, conniving, evil. You look pudgier too. It's clear you're eating your guilt. Thinking of you with his ding-dong inside of you makes me sick. Sick.
Bro, I don't understand how this is even... It's not even funny. This is obviously like a case of child abuse, but like... Jesus Christ, how do we even get to this point where you're writing such a fucked up letter, dude?
I raised you better
Clearly
than this.
we've entertained it for a bit too long.
What happened to my good little girl?
Put this bitch
Where
in
did
her
she go?
place.
And who is this monster that has replaced her? You're an ugly monster now. I told your brothers about you, and they all said they disown you just like I do. We want nothing to do with you. Love, Mom. Or should I say Deb, since I am no longer your mother. P.S. Send money for a new fridge. Ours broke.
The worst thing about all this was that
I'm
Jennette
not fixing
really
your
didn't
fucking fridge. If you write me a passive-aggressive email. I mean, calling that passive is kind of... if you write me a strongly worded email, you're not getting money for a fridge. That's for damn sure. Maybe I'm petty. Maybe I'm out of line.
Behavior at the time. She genuinely
Maybe I'm a
believed
bad son.
She believed that she was a disgrace. Jennette genuinely believed that she was the person in the wrong here, but Jennette wouldn't really have to deal with this for much longer. While her mom was getting slower and slower to death, Sam and Kat began production. This was a spin-off of both iCarly and Victorious that starred both Jennette McCurdy and Ariana Grande. The show was about Sam Puckett from iCarly and Kat Valentine from Victorious starting
talk about my 40-year-old husband's ding-dongs.
The show was ordered for 20 episodes its first season, but then ordered for another 20 episodes 6 months later after seeing its initial success, which was massive for a debut season. But this was a Dan Schneider production, and Dan was known for making all of the big hits in Nickelodeon. There was always the rumor that Sam and Ariana never got along on set because Sam was so jealous of Ariana's success, which initially caused the show to end. This was both true and not true. Jennette was initially promised a solo spin-off titled Just Puckett, which would star her as a school counselor. This is what she initially signed up for in 2012, but last minute, Nickelodeon changed it to be a spin-off co-starring Ariana Grande. Jennette and Ariana were professional on set, but it was true that Jennette was jealous of her. Jennette grew up in one of the worst parts of California, and Ariana grew up in a very bougie part of Boca Raton. Ariana was showered in Gucci handbags and Chanel outfits and taken on luxurious vacations by her family, while Jennette basically had to work to keep her family fed. And at the time that Sam and Kat started production, Ariana's music career really started to
Can two girl
off.
bosses not be friends?
She often had to miss work to perform at events, record music, and do press for her upcoming album. Jennette was jealous that they were giving Ariana so much leniency for her career, while she had to sit back and hold down the fort. The last straw was when Ariana couldn't come onto set for a whole week, and they accommodated her by writing an episode where she gets trapped in a box. Jennette was infuriated that they would go so far to change the show for Ariana, because when Jennette did iCarly, she had to turn down multiple movie roles for no accommodation. The fact that they weren't willing to give her the same treatment made Jennette take the blame out on Ariana. Even though Jennette hated being an actor and even had the opportunity to pursue a successful music career and turned it down, she was still jealous of Ariana. And to make things worse, it was September of that year that Deborah officially passed away from the cancer. The media somehow found out about her death immediately after it happened. As her mom was on her deathbed, Jennette tried to make her proud by telling her that she was down to 89 pounds. An extremely unhealthy way. Deborah died genuinely believing that she did everything right as a mom and left a good mark on her daughter. But in reality, she left a mark on Jennette that would make her spiral out of control. On the day of her mother's death, Jennette started 2 addictions, alcohol and bulimia. On the day her mom died, Jennette began drinking heavy to cope with the loss, chugging a big bottle of whiskey. Afterwards, she and her friends went to a sushi place and she ordered a giant teriyaki bowl while extremely drunk. Usually, Jennette would be careful with the portions not to disappoint her mom. But with her mom not around anymore, and in a very drunk temptation, she devoured the entire teriyaki bowl within seconds.
Yummy.
Feeling super guilty after eating the large meal, she then went home and vomited all of it out. This started a very unhealthy pattern.
Don't do that.
Would drink a very large amount of whiskey or wine during the night and vomit out her meals after eating them, or purge as she calls it. And this is where her bulimia started. Alcohol and eating disorders do not go very well together. Jennette grew up starving herself because she believed that eating too much food or almost any food at all was bad for her and not healthy. So even though she could now eat whatever she wanted, she was not able to keep it in her stomach out of subconscious guilt. Purging was a coping mechanism for Jennette when she experienced hard times, big or small. Had a bad day at work? Purge. Missing her mom? Purge. Going through a breakup? Purge. It got to the point where she was purging herself around 5 to 10 times a day while pounding nearly 9 shots a night. And all of this was happening while Sam and Cat was in production for the second half of the first season. On camera, Jennette was completely fine, but behind the scenes, she was a mess. She often would show up to work hungover and would dream about getting wasted at night after work. However, things started to seem hopeful for Sam when she was promised the opportunity to direct an episode for Sam and Cat, something that she dreamed about. Jennette still dreamed about being a writer and director, and getting this opportunity could be very big for her. However, the opportunity was taken back after one of the producers told her that one of the people on the show did not want her to direct, and were willing to go so far as to leave the show if she was directing an episode. She was never told who it was, whether it was
her show.
Many people speculated it was Ariana, considering they had beef, but it seems unlikely. When the show abruptly ended after only 1 season, media outlets tried to spread a bunch of rumors as to why it didn't last. Ariana and Jennette didn't get along. Jennette
would be my guess.
Ariana was getting paid more. Ariana just simply did not want to do it anymore. Most of the media tried to put the blame.
I think that Sam was already the freaking, like, sort of, like, sillier, slower character of the two on iCarly, and then they added Ariana Grande, who was, like, even a step dumber. Like, her character was written to be kind of even dumber than Sam, so it's like, what the fuck are we even talking about? I don't remember a single episode of Sam and Cat.
On Jennette and make her look like the reason why the show wouldn't continue. It didn't help that at the same time, bikini pics that she sent to her ex-boyfriend were leaked online, and she skipped out on the 2014 Kids' Choice Awards where Sam and Cat won the best show. But again, these also weren't true. Like I said before,
imagine
Jennette and
bikini pics of you leaking online. I don't know what I would do.
Acted professionally, and they were both equally paid. Jennette said herself that one of the reasons why the show ended was because one of the producers was sued for sexual harassment. And there's also a good chance that it had to do with the controversy of Dan Schneider. During the second half of Sam and Cat, Dan was not allowed on set because of his emotional abuse towards employees, and some of his scandals were slowly and starting to come to light around this time. I won't get too into detail about this because I already talked about it in my other video if you want to check that out after.
Why he
Dan
looks so
was still
like
allowed
that.
to work on the show, but he had to work in a separate room and watch all of the production through monitors. In her book, Jennette talked about how she experienced trauma.
Why do we need him that bad if you know he's dangerous?
A man named
He has to be in another room in a cage.
That she's referring to Dan Schneider and probably only named him that way to avoid any legal trouble. In the book, she talked about how the creator wanted the kids to wear bikini pics for photo shoots, how he would get extremely aggressive on set, and how he gave her massages without her wanting them. Jennette even described that the very first time she tried alcohol was because the creator pressured her to drink spiked coffee. And it was also the creator who promised her the solo spin-off and the opportunity to direct an episode, both promises that were broken, which she coped with by purging. And after Sam and Cat ended, Jennette was offered $300,000 in hush money to not talk about her experiences with the creator. She rejected the offer. Now, this was the most direct that Jennette was about her experience with Dan, but it wasn't her first. In 2013, Jennette went pretty viral for posting this Vine directed at Dan saying, "Look what you've done to me."
Hey Dan Schneider, I know you're watching my Vine. Do you like my Vine? Vine. Look what you've done to me.
Dude, I forgot about that. That was crazy.
Going crazy, but looking back, a lot of people now see it as her trying to warn everybody. But now that Sam and Cat was over, her time at Nickelodeon was over, so it was time to find a new gig. Jennette moved on to star on the Netflix show Between, a show about a group of people who have to fend for themselves after a mysterious disease kills everybody over 21 years old. Jennette was excited to be in her first serious role. Netflix originals were getting a very good rep at the time, and being the lead in an original series was a
times change.
No more kids shows. Now it's real shit. But it was upon her first day that she already had a bad feeling about the show. The script looked like absolute crap. And she also learned that Between was not actually being produced by Netflix. It was produced by the Canadian network City TV. Netflix was just simply the distributor. And upon release, the show got low to decent reception, with one critic calling it a poorly acted upon regurgitation of post-apocalyptic cliches. Between falls short of Netflix's other high-quality offerings.
They're tearing your ass to shreds.
Enough by fans to get renewed
on the Metacritic.
At the time, Jennette started dating her co-star Jesse Carrare, and this was the first time that Jennette started having an authentic relationship. All of her past relationships either felt fake, forced, or were built on some type of unhealthy need. Her relationship from Paul simply stemmed from the fact that she needed someone close in her life now that her mom was dying. Her 2013 relationship with NBA player Andre Drummond was simply all for show. Jennette only stayed in it for as long as she did because it looked cute on camera at the time. But her relationship with Jesse was different. He was flawed, but so was she. They were flawed together. Their relationship details weren't very public at the time, but in Jennette's book, she claims how she dated a man named Steven on the show Between. And matching up the timeline, it's safe to say that Steven is Jesse. In her book, Jennette writes how Steven suffered from schizophrenia and at one point genuinely believing that he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, but was also very supportive of Jennette in her time of need. She was still suffering terribly from her bulimia, which affected her everyday life. She would skip breakfast, eat a small snack for lunch, and then go absolutely wild for dinner and purge it all up. This was slowly starting to kill her. Well, not kill her, but it was pretty bad. It got to the point where she lost teeth from it, but Jennette recognized that this wasn't healthy and wanted to do something about it. So she went to a therapist at the encouragement of Jesse. Now, typical procedures for getting to the root of addictions and bad habits is getting to the root of the cause, mostly from childhood. Most people's issues always go back to childhood because that's when the brain is doing the most developing. When Jennette started talking to her therapist about her mom and everything she did, she talked about it positively, talking about how her mom was the one who got her into acting and taught her calorie restriction to help her get better roles. In Jennette, this was her mom helping her get a better life. She thought this was good. She thought her mom was helping her by doing this. But her therapist told her that her mom was the one who taught her anorexia and that this was abuse. This is when things started to become clear for Jennette, and she did not like it. It all started to click that she was the real root for the issues. Her eating disorders, her relationship problems, a lifelong career that she was ashamed of. It was all because of her mom. She finally realized that her mom didn't get her into acting because it was best for her. It was a vessel to fulfill her own dreams and exploit her daughter for money. All of the problems that she had now were because of her mom. For Jennette's entire life, she was made to feel guilty for wanting something different for her life and also wanting to set boundaries. Now, it all started to make sense. This was not an easy thing for Jennette to accept so quickly. She even fired her therapist for bringing up the idea of this being a reality. To make matters worse, she found out that the man that she grew up with, Mark, was not her biological father, nor was he the father to any of Jennette's 3 brothers. For 7 years, Deborah had an affair with trombonist Andy Martin. He's actually been featured in over 350
Andy
movies,
Martin, trombonist!
And even played a solo in Monsters Inc. and in La La Land. Jennette's father knew about this her entire life, but waited until after her mom passed to finally tell her. Jennette rightfully was confused and angry. How could her mom do this? How could she not tell them? Years of devoted church belief.
Yeah, be like that. But sometimes the pieces are all just there in plain sight, but you don't connect them because maybe deep down you don't want to connect them, I guess.
Constantly accusing her husband of cheating just for her to do the exact same thing back. It seemed like the entire family was a lie. Jennette was finally starting to see the dark colors of her mom. Maybe she wasn't perfect. Maybe she did terrible things. I mean, she had 21 years to tell Jennette who her real father was and never did. Jennette wanted to find the truth, so she went to one of Andy's concerts to see him in person. He instantly recognized her and explained the entire situation. Andy always knew about Jennette and her brothers, but her mom did not want him to be around them. There was a big custody battle in court, and Deborah was able to win full custody after accusing Andy of being physically abusive, which he wasn't. And this seemed to be the only time they met. Finally starting to come to terms with who her mom really was, Jennette decided to take a break from acting after Between wasn't renewed for a 3rd season. She needed a break from the spotlight and finally focus on herself. She got a new therapist to work on her eating disorder by finally coming to terms with her past. She fully committed to recovering. On her 21st birthday, she threw her scale in the trash and stopped her unhealthy obsession with her weight. She started eating and enjoying all the foods that she loved in life without stressing over every single little calorie or worrying that her mom wouldn't approve. It was accepting the harsh truth about her mom that helped Jennette really commit to recovering. But she still wasn't interested in acting, so it shouldn't come as a big surprise that when iCarly got a reboot, she did not appear. Miranda tried to convince Sam to join.
True, plus that shit was trash, dude. I did a reaction to 1 or 2 of those episodes, and it was a rough watch from what I recall,
considering it was good money and could be a big opportunity. But Jennette had no interest. For Jennette, iCarly was a time where she was supposed to develop on her own and have a real childhood, but against her will had to sacrifice it. Joining the reboot of a show that captured all of her terrible memories and trauma would be the last thing that anyone in that situation wants. Even if it was good money, Jennette didn't necessarily need it. She made great money from
plus reboots are freaking cringe. Alright, I'm gonna leave it there, but dude, this was a good recap of a tragic tale, but it's good that Jennette McCurdy is doing better now. Shout out to freaking It's Blanco. Very interesting. I did not know any of that was going on between the funny web show within a show.